So trying to figure out who the good guys and bad guys are. Like 10 years ago, I finally got my hands on the INWO Illuminati New World Order card set, and boy, did it profoundly expand my understanding of things. Now again, 10 years ago, so actually it's probably been like 13 years now. So I'm not afraid to admit it, but once you see those cards, there's something that clicks in your mind where you realize how expansive the conspiracy is. And I think that same year that I got those cards, I read the book by Edward Bernays entitled Propaganda. And in the book, I'm paraphrasing what I remember, but he says that, because it was like a book it was like a presentation to like the elite. And he was saying, all right, here's what we do. We find out every single special interest that is happening, and we create a magazine to capture it at the beginning. And even something as simple as cycling or boating or anything. Something, from big time political activism to simple hobbying. And what we do is at the beginning, we tell them exactly what they want to hear to lure them in and gain their trust. And then we slowly and gently shift what they believe to what we want them to believe. But we do it so slowly that they don't even realize that it's happening to them. And then, and one of the examples I could give you that I remember seeing this happen, because I had to wait, I obviously like cycling and hiking and all that, that's all been around for a long time. But in my lifetime, video gaming became a hobby. And I remember the earliest magazines were the best, like Nintendo Fun Club and Nintendo Power and Game Pro. And I remember there was like a section that was like letter from the editor, and the Power got so here's how it works. So you have like the good guys that give you a great magazine, and then not ownership changes, but the lead editor changes, or there's some kind of corporate change. It's like, oh yeah, it's just like this natural cause of events. It just changed. And when that changes, the real people come in. It's kind of like, hey, we like Reagan, but then like Bush snuck his way in, HW. And so when the new editors come in, that's when the whole shift of the direction the magazine's going. And along these lines of video games, I remember this one. This is like totally off. It's off topic, but I remember reading. I don't remember which magazine it was, and I don't remember what year it was. But the article said, "Hey, listen, we're about to go Hollywood with video games. We've realized there's a large market that could be tapped, that could actually eventually someday make more money than the movie industry. But in order to do that, we need to essentially alienate the entire present gaming population. And you are the ones that made gaming a thing in the first place. But unfortunately, the world works on money. And so one of the things we've discovered is that the easier the game, the more the mass population becomes interested in it. The current games of the time period were too challenging and difficult for the average user. So I guess somebody had a theory and they put out this real simple game. Might have been addictive because it was so simple, and it made a lot of money. And the success of that game was basically what like ruined video games forever after, because they realized like, wow, we could put out this simple, mindless, mind-numbing thing and people will be nuts for it. And so they basically said like, hey gamers, thanks, but we're about to make $1 billion here, and we're gonna make games that you guys are gonna hate. Now that's a different thing than what I'm talking about. That's just money. That's not a gradualism sneaky thing. But to get back to, all right, I remember where I was. The INWO Illuminati New World Order cards. When I got that set, I saw how many factions there were and how those factions interconnect. And then I was trying to tie it to the real world, because I know some of you are thinking, those are just cards, man, it's not reality. And it's like, I know the cards are to help you understand the reality. And so I was tying it to that 1930s book Propaganda by Edward Bernays. And in it, Bernays was saying that they would find every single group that exists out there and then compromise it, like take it over through time. They had these systematic plans to take over every interest and then replace it. And so then if you have your insiders on every single interest group, you could then control the whole mindset of the whole population. And that's what those cards showed, was that, yeah, there's all these different groups. And again, you got to get this card set to see the enormity, and not just one set, but like all the sets. And when you see all the sets and then all the techniques and all the tactics and all the alliances, the grand chessboard of it all becomes so different. And then once you start to see, figure out like, all right, so what side have I been fighting for all this time? Now, I fight for good. I fight for goodness and God and the light. See, when you say the light, then it's like, well, what's he really talking about? Is that some new age thing? But I'm for the side of good and truth and honesty. I don't really have a club. I never had a club other than groups that I created myself. Catherine Austin Fitts said the greatest thing the other day, or last year. She said, hey, listen, if you're not already part of a conspiracy, start one. Which means she said, like, get together with people and create your own agenda, create your own conspiracy, conspire against the world for good, right? So let's all conspire against the world for good, but also openly declare what our end game is. So my end game is, I don't want a religious fundamentalist world, but I also don't want a totally atheist world. I also don't want a communist world, but I also don't want old-fashioned, like 1800s version of capitalism. I also don't want socialism. I don't want fascism. I want the end of artificial scarcity. I want, a lot of people have no problem saying, hey, I read a magazine article that said reality might be a simulation. Didn't you write a book there called Simulation Theory, John? But the article doesn't say, hey, if we're in a computer simulation, are we having the best gaming experience? Are you guys enjoying the game? And if not, why not? Who's making your gaming experience not good? And then we could find, once you identify that, then we could build on it. But if we're just going around with the first part, but not the realization of what that means, and then again, what's the agenda? My agenda is the ninth insight. If you want to know my agenda, it's the ninth insight of the Celestine Prophecy. It's to create a fully automated society, total abundance, where people's lives are about going about the adventure and mystery and discovery of the meaning of your life instead of being locked in a cubicle for 40 hours a week. I think my version's a little bit better than what we got. What do you think? And I remember in like 98, I read the book Conversations with God. And in it, the author, Neil Donald Walsch, is complaining to God. He's like, well, God, why did you make the world this way? And God said, I didn't. You did. You all have the free will. And he said, you guys actually want the world the way it is. Because if you didn't, you'd make it a different way. And this is before Agent Smith, this is before the Matrix came out, before Agent Smith said, Morpheus, the first Matrix was a perfect utopia, but your primitive cerebrums lacked the programming power to whatever, and I've actually seen this thing tested in real life. I was in a situation in like a program in college that started with 50 students, and we only ended with 18 because they basically gave us the red pill, and 32 out of the 50 couldn't handle the red pill. Not only that, we didn't have like grades in the same sense. We still had grades, but it was a whole, they basically offered us like a learning utopia. and more than half of the population rejected it. And so, unfortunately, I want to be in Tomorrowland. I want to be in the breakaway civilization, the advanced society. But somehow I'm still stuck in general population. And these are the reasons we can't have nice things. So, who are the bad guys? Who are the good guys? What's the agenda? What's the end game? What are you trying to create? I'm trying to create a utopia, not like the spooky, scary kind, but the practical kind, the sustainable kind, where everybody is equally rich. Everything's on demand perpetually, a Napster for everything. Imagine downloading CAD files and printing items, but eventually over time you realize you don't even need material things, you just need shelter. How is it that we can't provide the basic necessities like the freemium model? You know, you get an Apple iPhone and then you get apps that go onto it. And the apps are free, and then if you want to add functionality, you can pay for it. And in this version, you could do like some kind of meritocracy. But